So everyone knows that the cost of college is through the roof and has skyrocketed over the last few decades. But some of you might be wondering why. What is driving this? And some of you might be thinking, oh, it's just greed. Some of you might be thinking it's inflation, but there are actually some pretty specific reasons behind some of it, at least. Now, this is helpful to understand because you and your student can use this to understand the costs and decide, is it worth it? And I don't mean is college worth it, but is that specific college worth it? Or do we need to find something that's more affordable within our budget, etc., which is exactly what we do here. So that said, make sure you hit subscribe because every week I have a strategy for you and your family to work towards a debt-free degree. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System and Debt-Free Degree Lab, and this is what we do. We help families build strong financial futures rather than ones where they're paying on student loans for decades to come. Now, one of our main weapons against student loan debt is scholarships. That's our bread and butter. In fact, our families have secured over $13 million to date. But that said, getting close to that debt-free degree, a huge part of it is choosing that college and dictating what the bill is in the first place, and then finding the debt-free money to cover it. So that's why it's important to understand this. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, before I even begin, if you are a parent watching this, comment below and share us what did you pay for college if you went, or what did college cost when you were between 18 and 22. Let me know in the comments. It might make us all cry, but I'd love to hear what tuition was. If it's only tuition, say that specifically because of course other costs are way more, but if you have a total year cost, would love to hear that as well. So Adam Davidson in New York Times Magazine, he said that the single most important factor behind the rising tuition is that it allows colleges to shape their student body. What does this mean? Basically, the higher they bring up tuition costs, the more flexibility they have with then giving out discounts and scholarships to certain students in order to really build a student body that they're looking for. This is how they would recruit, in theory, the exact mix and type of students that they want by offering those discounts and meeting students where they're at. So that one is a little frustrating for families because I know we want to be able to just go to their website and see what's the price and know that that's the price. But if you followed anything that I've talked about around colleges, then you'll know that the price on their website is not usually what families actually pay. And that's why it's so important to understand everything that goes into the actual cost of college and how to find a financial fit. Now, in the scholarship system online course, we do have a whole mini lesson on specifically just finding a financial fit for that reason. Now, in addition to what this person said, there are some other reasons. Of course, one is decreased state funding. So if you look at what the government used to give the universities by state, it has decreased over the years. So this shortfall has to be made up somewhere, and so they increase the tuition to make up for it. Secondly is increased administrative costs. Administrative departments have more people than ever. They've really expanded it, given people very specific hats that they need to wear and roles and responsibilities, which increases their salary and their costs. The next one is a big one, and this one we talk about a lot, is the expansion of campus facilities and services. So there's always the discussion about the lazy rivers, right? So there are universities where they've put in lazy rivers. My university where I went had the 4th largest gym in the nation. It had rock wall climbing, it had pools, it was one of the nicest gym facilities it's the nicest I've ever been in my entire life. They've added in more and more sports and extracurricular activities. And with all of that, you've got an increase in supplies and equipment and fields and courts and all of that. So that said, just structuring around facilities and services that they're offering to the students, that of course drastically increase the cost of college. If you look at Europe, for example, their universities are still quite a bit cheaper than ours, a lot cheaper. In fact, some countries offer free education still to their students over there. But if you look at the college experience, it is not like the United States. It is, you're going for an education, you've got school buildings, probably a beautiful campus, but most likely you will not have a lazy river going through a campus in Europe. The next reason is higher demand. So we've had more and more students go to college over the last few decades than ever, because this is what society has told them you need to do. In order to get a job, you have to have that degree. So the amount of blue collar workers has decreased and white collar workers with degrees has increased. Now, we can debate this, especially right now. There is such a need for services. So actually going into the trades can be extremely lucrative for people. But that said, we kind of created this this system that's just cranking out degrees and enrolling students. And so universities had to catch up and had to be able to respond to having the biggest classes they've ever had, whether that's increasing housing, increasing staff, increasing buildings, you name it. Also, just supply and demand. There are more students that want to get in. They are more desperate to be at that institution. We can still charge a higher price because they're going to be able to fill their freshman class no matter what. And then lastly, and this is one that is in my mind, a part of this is that there is no way to claim bankruptcy on student loans. Therefore, students can borrow an obscene amount of money, and therefore banks lend it because they cannot claim bankruptcy on it. So banks don't care that they're lending six figures to an 18-year-old. So when a student can get access to the money, and colleges know that, there really isn't an incentive to be cheaper, right? So they know, hey, if we put this price out there, they're going to have to pay it. And that's really unfortunate, but I think it's true. If students did not have access to loans, if parents weren't co-signing on $100,000 or more of student loan debt and enrollment numbers went down, colleges would have to find some kind of alternative. So there's a lot, as you can see, going into this. Now, I don't want this just to be all doom and gloom. I do want to give you some tips on what we can do about it. So first and foremost, apply to scholarships. You know that one was coming. They are available from so many different sources: government programs, educational institutions, the universities themselves, private organizations, nonprofits, clubs that your student's a member of. The list goes on. Now, I have a free 1-hour webinar where you can learn exactly how to get started on those scholarships, how I find ones that aren't even on the big search engines. So you can check that out at thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar, which you can also click on this video, open it up in a new tab, and check that out after this video. I will also share the link in the description below for when you're done. Secondly, you might be considering a community college. I love this option. It can be very cost effective, and a lot of times students can actually transfer from there to the big 4-year university and still graduate with the same degree. They just saved tons of money on those first 2 years. So a community college might be a great solution, especially if it means living at home for free, saving there. There's a lot of savings that can come from this. Another option could be enrolling in part-time. I actually just released a video not long ago on how to get scholarships for part-time students. So we will link to that in the description, or you can click on it here as well. But going and working at the same time, this is of course going to take longer, but it could be a way to make it more affordable. And lastly, I wanted to mention tuition reimbursement programs. So there are actually a lot of employers now that are making degrees part of their benefit package, whether it's covering student debt or covering tuition if you want to take classes while an employee. One example, actually, my sister works for Chase Bank. She's doing fantastic in the company, and they actually are willing to pay for the rest of her bachelor's degree. She actually did not finish college. She didn't need to. She found an amazing career path without it. But that said, Chase values those degrees, and so they're willing to pay for it, which is amazing. Now, we have a whole article all about why the cost of tuition is so high. We will link to that in the description as well if you're a reader and you want to read more. But ultimately, it's really a mixture of a lot of things here. And what the solution is, of course, no one has the answer to that. Just making it's not just black and white. It's not just one answer. It's going to take a lot of different things changing in order to fix it. And so I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. So in the meantime, what we need to do is subscribe and follow the tips that we're sharing with your family, because we've had many families pull off a degree that is either completely free or they get an overage check like I did, where they got extra money in for the semesters for costs, or at the very least, they're drastically reducing the cost of college. So again, hit subscribe, check out that free webinar about scholarships. Again, you can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar for that and watch our videos, because this is how we are overcoming this insane cost of college. All right, I'll see you in the next video.